My name is Tara Turner, and I am 32 years old. 5 years ago, my mother called me 3 days before Thanksgiving and said one sentence I can still hear in my sleep. "Do not come home this year. Vanessa cannot handle your drama." That was it. No soft opening, no apology. No, honey, this is hard. Just a closed door. I had spent 27 years trying to be easy enough for my family to love, and my mother still decided I was the person who had to be left out. That Thanksgiving, I ate alone in a restaurant in Boston. I sat at a tiny table near the kitchen doors, pretending I was fine while I watched other families pass rolls and laugh and take photos. I did not know the older couple sitting near me would become the parents I had always needed. I did not know that 5 years later, at my wedding, they would be introduced as the parents of the bride while my real mother and father stood in the back of the room uninvited. And I did not know my mother would have to hear, in front of more than 100 people, that I had been adopted by the family who chose me after she threw me away. Before I tell you how it all happened, take a second to subscribe if stories about family, boundaries, and starting over speak to you. And tell me in the comments where you are listening from tonight. I always like knowing where these stories travel. It started in my apartment in Boston. It was November 21st, 3 days before Thanksgiving. My place was small, but I had tried to make it feel cozy. I had a pumpkin candle burning on the windowsill. I had 2 sweaters folded into an old suitcase on my bed. My plane ticket to Connecticut was printed and tucked in the side pocket of my purse, because I am the kind of person who still prints things when I am nervous. I was nervous because going home always made me nervous. That should have told me something. My phone rang while I was checking the weather for the flight. Mom. Her name on the screen still made me sit up straighter back then. I wiped my hands on my jeans and answered with a smile she could not see. "Hey, Mom, I was just about to call you." "Tara." One word. Flat. Cold. My smile disappeared. "What's wrong? Is Dad okay?" "Your father is fine." There was a pause. I could hear dishes clinking in the background, which meant she was probably in the kitchen, doing something with one hand while deciding my place in the family with the other. "Listen," she said. "I need you not to come home this year." For a second, I thought I had heard her wrong. What? Do not come home for Thanksgiving. I laughed a little because my brain wanted it to be a joke. "Mom, what are you talking about? My flight is Wednesday." "Vanessa is pregnant again. She has been very emotional. She does not want drama." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "Drama? Do not start." "I am not starting. I am asking what drama means." My mother sighed like I had already exhausted her. "You know how you get." Those words were old. I had heard them my whole life. You know how you get. Too sensitive, too intense, too quick to make things about yourself, too unwilling to smile when someone stepped on your foot. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have not even spoken to Vanessa in months." "Exactly. Let us keep it peaceful." "Peaceful for who?" She went quiet. I should have stopped there. I should have hung up and saved myself the last little bit of hope I still had. But I was still that daughter, the one who believed if I explained myself clearly enough, my mother might finally understand. "Last year," I said, "all I did was ask why I was not invited to her baby shower. That is not drama. That is a normal question." "There it is," Mom said. "This is exactly why Vanessa is anxious. You always keep score." I looked at the suitcase on my bed. 2 sweaters, 1 black dress. A pair of boots I had polished because my mother noticed things like scuffed shoes before she noticed hurt feelings. I already bought my ticket. Then see if you can get a credit. It is non-refundable. "Tara, this is not about money." "No," I said, and my voice broke before I could stop it. "It is about me being the easiest person to cut." She did not answer that. She did not deny it either. "Vanessa is pregnant," she said again. "She does not need stress. I expect you to understand." Then the line went dead. I sat there with the phone still pressed to my ear. I remember the sound of the heater clicking on. I remember the candle flame moving in the draft from the window. I remember staring at my suitcase and feeling stupid for packing so early, like I had been caught wanting something I should have known better than to want. Thanksgiving was never simple in my family. Nothing was simple when Vanessa was involved. My sister was 2 years older than me, and from the day I can remember, she was the fragile one, the special one, the one everyone had to protect. If Vanessa cried, the house stopped. If I cried, I was told to calm down. When I turned 16, my mother promised I could have a small birthday party. Nothing big. 3 friends, bowling, a cake from the bakery with the strawberry filling I loved. I talked about it for weeks. That morning, Vanessa called from college crying because she had failed a calculus exam. By noon, my party was canceled. My mother stood in the kitchen, purse over her shoulder, car keys in her hand. "Your sister needs us right now," she said. "You can celebrate next weekend." We never did. When I graduated from college with honors, I scanned the crowd over and over while the names were called. My parents' seats were empty. They arrived 2 hours late because Vanessa had a prenatal appointment and did not want to go alone. It was a routine checkup. Nothing was wrong. My father hugged me outside the auditorium and said, "You understand, right?" I nodded because I always understood. I understood that Vanessa's ordinary day mattered more than my milestone. I understood that my job was to be mature. I understood that if I objected, I would become the problem. So I learned to swallow everything. I learned to say, "It is fine." I learned to make myself useful. I learned to be the daughter who did not need much. I thought that would make them proud. It made me invisible. After my mother hung up, I called my father. I did not plan to cry. I even practiced what I was going to say while the phone rang. "Dad, I need you to hear me. Dad, this is not okay. Dad, do you want me there?" He answered on the 4th ring. "Hey, sweetheart." His voice was careful. He already knew. "Did Mom tell you?" I asked. Silence. In the background, I heard a football announcer. She mentioned something. Something? "Tara." "No, Dad. Please do not Tara me." "She told me not to come home for Thanksgiving." He breathed out slowly. "Your mother is trying to keep things calm by excluding me. It is not that simple. It is very simple from where I am standing." He did the thing he always did when he wanted to leave a conversation without actually leaving it. He got quiet. My father could disappear while still holding the phone. "Dad," I said, softer now, "do you want me there?" He did not answer. 5 seconds passed, then 10. I counted them because some part of me already knew this moment would matter. "I think," he finally said, "it might be better if you listen to your mother this year." Something inside me went still, not angry, not even surprised, just still. "Okay," I said. "Tara, do not be like that." "Okay." I hung up. He did not call back. For the rest of that night, I sat on my bed with my suitcase open beside me. Every now and then, I would look at the plane ticket like it might change into something else if I stared long enough. It did not. By morning, my sadness had turned into something harder. Not confidence yet, more like a small, stubborn no. No, I was not going to spend Thanksgiving in bed with crackers and a blanket. No, I was not going to let them decide that I deserved to disappear. If I could not sit at their table, I would sit at another one. Thanksgiving morning was gray and cold. Boston looked like it had been washed in dirty water. The sky was low, the sidewalks were wet. My upstairs neighbors had family over, and I could hear children running back and forth above my ceiling. My phone stayed silent. No happy Thanksgiving from my mother. No text from my father. Nothing from Vanessa. Around noon, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Vanessa had posted a photo. Of course she had. There they were. My mother, my father, Vanessa, her husband Brandon, and their little boy in a sweater with a turkey on it, everyone smiling around the dining room table I had grown up setting every November. The caption said, "So thankful for the people who matter most." I zoomed in before I could stop myself. 5 place settings, no empty chair, not even the polite fiction of one. That hurt more than the phone call. They had not just told me to stay away, they had made a family picture with no sign I'd ever belonged there. I put the phone face down on the couch and stared at the ceiling. For about 20 minutes, I considered ordering Chinese food and calling it a day. Then I stood up. I put on my coat, my boots, and the red scarf my grandmother had knitted for me before she died. She was the only person in my childhood who ever made me feel chosen, and I wanted something of hers with me. I searched for restaurants open on Thanksgiving and found one called Harbor House Grill. It was expensive for my budget. I went anyway. Harbor House Grill sat near the water in one of those old brick buildings with tall windows and brass door handles. Inside, it smelled like roasted turkey, butter, coffee, and warm bread. For a moment, I almost turned around. Everywhere I looked, there were families, grandparents helping children take off coats, couples leaning close over candles, groups of friends laughing too loudly, the kind of noise that tells you people have somewhere to belong. The hostess looked at me and picked up one menu. Just one? There it was. The question every lonely person hates. "Just one," I said. She led me to a tiny table near the kitchen entrance, close enough that every time the swinging door opened, I felt heat and heard dishes clatter. On my other side was a large family spread across 2 pushed-together tables. I tried not to look at them. That lasted about 30 seconds. At the head of their table sat an older couple. The woman had silver hair pinned loosely at the back of her neck and the kind of face that seemed both soft and sharp, like she could comfort you and cross-examine you in the same minute. The man beside her had a deep laugh and a napkin tucked into his collar, even though his wife kept telling him to remove it. There was a younger couple, 2 children, and another man about my age who kept making the kids laugh by balancing a spoon on his nose. I looked away before they caught me staring. My server brought water and a bread basket. "Thanksgiving special?" "Please." I tried to sound normal. When my plate came, it was beautiful. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, green beans with almonds. A perfect holiday meal. I could barely swallow. The table beside me passed dishes around with that easy rhythm families have when they do not need to ask who likes what. Someone teased the older man about his terrible jokes. One of the kids dropped a roll, and 3 people reached for it at once. The silver-haired woman touched her husband's sleeve every time she laughed. I watched them out of the corner of my eye and felt my throat close. This was what I had been chasing my whole life. Not perfection, not some movie version of family, just a table where nobody had to audition for a chair. The tears came fast. I turned my face toward the window and pressed my napkin under my eyes. I told myself to stop. I told myself people could see. I told myself I was proving my mother right by crying in public. Then a voice beside me said, "Honey?" I froze. The silver-haired woman from the next table was standing there. Up close, her eyes were kind, but direct. "Are you all right?" I did what I always did. I lied. "I'm fine. Allergies." She raised one eyebrow. "Allergies can be rough. They usually do not make people cry into mashed potatoes, though." I let out a shaky laugh that almost turned into a sob. Was I that obvious? Only to someone paying attention. I wiped my face, embarrassed. "I'm sorry." "No need to apologize. I'm Elaine." "Tara." "Tara," she said, like my name was something worth remembering. No one should eat Thanksgiving dinner alone if they do not want to. I looked at her, unsure what to do with that sentence. She glanced back at her table. "Come join us." "Oh no, I could not." "You can." "I do not want to intrude." "You are not intruding if you have been invited." I shook my head. "Really? That is very kind, but I am okay." The older man at her table leaned over and called, "She is not going to leave you alone. Save yourself some time." The younger man with the spoon smiled at me. He is right. Mrs. Miller does not lose once she decides to adopt someone for dinner. Elaine gave him a look. Matthew, do not scare her. I am not scared, I said, which was not true. Elaine held out her hand. Come on. We have too much pie, and my husband is about to tell a joke that will hurt all of us. You may as well suffer with company. I looked at my plate, then at the empty chair she had already asked someone to pull over, then at this woman I had never met, who looked at me with more concern than my own mother had shown in years. Okay, I whispered. If you are sure. I am sure. And just like that, my life began moving in a direction I could not see yet. They made space for me like it was the easiest thing in the world. A chair appeared between Elaine and the younger couple. Someone handed me a fresh plate, even though I already had one. The older man poured me a glass of wine and then introduced himself as Raymond Miller. This is my wife, Elaine, he said. Our son David, his wife Sandra, their 2 kids, Aaron and Liam, and that troublemaker over there is Matthew Collins. He is not related by blood, but do not tell him. He has been eating our food since college. Matthew raised his glass. I am basically furniture at this point. Expensive furniture, Raymond said, always hungry. The kids laughed. I gave a small wave. I'm Tara. Thank you for letting me join you. What do you do, Tara? Sandra asked, passing me the green beans. Graphic design. Freelance. Mostly. That sounds creative, Elaine said. I waited for the usual follow-up my family always gave. Is that stable? Can you make a living doing that? Is that really a job? But Elaine only asked what kind of projects I liked best. So, I told her. At first, I gave short answers. I was careful. I did not want to take up too much room. But the Millers kept making room anyway. David asked about my clients. Sandra told me about a terrible logo her office had paid too much money for. Aaron asked if I could draw unicorns. Liam asked if I could draw dinosaurs fighting unicorns. Matthew leaned across the table and said, "That is a fair creative brief." I laughed, a real laugh. It surprised me. Raymond lifted his glass. "A toast," he said. Elaine groaned. "Please be normal." "Never." He smiled at me. "To unexpected guests who make a table better." Everyone raised a glass, even the children with their apple juice. I raised mine too. For a second, I could not speak. I had been at that table for less than 20 minutes, and they had already given me more welcome than my own family had offered in years. After dinner, when the plates were cleared and the children were trying to decide which pie was best, Elaine moved her chair closer to mine. "Can I ask why you were alone today?" I looked at my hands. My mother told me not to come home. Elaine did not gasp. She did not rush to tell me maybe my mother meant well. She just waited. So I told her more. Not everything. Enough. I told her Vanessa was pregnant again. I told her I had been labeled the dramatic one because I asked questions nobody wanted to answer. I told her my father had said it was better if I listened to my mother. The words sounded smaller out loud than they felt inside me. That made me ashamed until Elaine put her hand over mine. "I was a family lawyer for 30 years, she said. Do you know what I learned?" I shook my head. People who are invested in unfair systems often call fairness drama. My eyes burned again. She squeezed my hand. "You are not wrong for noticing when you are being mistreated." Nobody had ever said that to me so plainly. Not a therapist, not a friend, not my father in a rare brave moment because he did not have those. Elaine Miller, a stranger in a restaurant, said it like it was simple. And maybe it was. Maybe I had been trained to think simple things were complicated because complicated things kept everyone else comfortable. I want to pause right here because I know someone listening has been called dramatic for asking a normal question. If that has happened to you, write the word "seen" in the comments. Sometimes just saying it somewhere helps. And if this story is speaking to you, subscribe now so you can find the next one. When the dinner finally ended, I tried to pay my share. Raymond looked offended. Absolutely not. Please, I said. You already let me sit with you. Let you? He shook his head. You improved the whole evening. Besides, I have a strict policy about not letting sad young women pay for cold turkey. Raymond, Elaine warned. What? It is a good policy. Matthew laughed. It is oddly specific but strong. Outside, snow had started falling again. The sidewalk glowed under the streetlights. People hurried past carrying leftovers and sleepy children. In the lobby, Elaine pressed a card into my hand. Cream paper, black letters. Elaine Miller, J.D. Family law, retired. There was a phone number and an address in Brookline. Sunday dinner is at 5, she said. You are welcome any time. That is very kind, but I do not want to impose. Matthew pulled on his coat. You will learn that sentence does not work on her. Elaine ignored him. I mean it, Tara. Not because I feel sorry for you, because I like you. That landed somewhere deep, because pity would have made me run. But being liked, I did not know what to do with that. Maybe, I said. Good enough for now. Raymond gave me one of those careful side hugs people give when they do not want to scare you off. Happy Thanksgiving, kid. I walked home through the snow with Elaine's card in my pocket. My apartment was still small. My suitcase was still half packed. My phone was still silent. But something had shifted. I had sat at a table where nobody asked me to shrink. Once you feel that, even for one evening, it becomes harder to go back to begging for crumbs. I did not call Elaine the next day, or the day after that. I looked at her card so many times the edges started to soften, but I kept telling myself she had only been polite. People said things during holidays. They got sentimental. They invited strangers to dinner and then forgot about them. On Sunday afternoon at 4:17, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered. Tara, it is Elaine Miller. I am calling to remind you that dinner is at 5, and Raymond bought too many potatoes because he has no sense of proportion. I smiled before I could stop myself. I did not want to assume the invitation was real. I do not make fake invitations. Do you need the address again? No, I have it. Good. Wear something comfortable. We are not fancy unless Sandra forgets who we are. I went. I told myself I would stay 1 hour. I stayed 4. That became the rhythm of my life. Sunday dinners at the Miller house. At first, I was a guest. Then, I was the person who brought dessert. Then, I was the person Elaine asked to come early and help chop onions. Then, I had a drawer in their kitchen where they kept the tea I liked. Then Raymond started texting me pictures of furniture he was fixing because he knew I liked old things. Then Aaron and Liam began yelling, Aunt Tara, when I came through the door. The first time they did it, I stopped in the entryway with my coat half off. Sandra looked embarrassed. Sorry. They just started saying that. No, I said quickly. It is okay. It was more than okay. It nearly undid me. Matthew was there most Sundays too. He had gone to architecture school with David and had lost both his parents young. The Millers had pulled him into their orbit years before they found me. He teased Raymond, helped Elaine carry groceries, and somehow always ended up washing dishes beside me. At first, we were just friendly. Then we became the kind of friends who texted during the week. A photo of a ridiculous sign, a complaint about a client, a recipe that had gone wrong, a message that simply said, "Are you okay today?" Those messages mattered. Healing did not arrive like thunder. It came in small, ordinary pieces, a seat saved for me, a bowl of soup when I had the flu, Elaine remembering that I hated pecans, Raymond fixing the wobbly leg on my thrift store desk without making me feel helpless, Matthew walking me to my car because the driveway was icy, then standing there, talking for 20 minutes in the cold because neither of us wanted the conversation to end. 8 months after that first Thanksgiving, Elaine and I sat on her back porch while the spring garden woke up around us. Tulips, pushed through the soil. Raymond and Matthew were inside yelling at a baseball game. Elaine poured tea into 2 chipped mugs. "Have you heard from your parents?" "No." "Have you wanted to?" I watched a bird hop along the fence. Sometimes, usually late at night, I will start thinking maybe I should explain again. Then I remember they know. They just do not think it matters. Elaine nodded. "That is a painful difference. I keep waiting to feel guilty. Do you?" "Less than I thought." She smiled a little. "Good." I looked at her. "Good?" Guilt can be useful when you have done something wrong, but some families train guilt into you like a leash. Every time you walk too far away, it tightens. I sat with that. Elaine was very good at saying things that made me quiet. "I used to help people formalize chosen family," she said after a while. "Guardianships, wills, healthcare proxies, adult adoptions. The law is slow, but sometimes it catches up with what the heart already knows." Adult adoption? It is exactly what it sounds like. One adult can be legally adopted by another adult or couple if everyone consents. It creates real legal ties. Next of kin, inheritance rights, new records, a new family line. I looked down at my tea. "Why are you telling me this?" Her voice softened. "Because you deserve to know that family is not only something that happens to you. Sometimes it is something you get to build." I did not answer. I was not ready. But I kept the thought. I tucked it somewhere safe. 2 years passed. My life got bigger. My work improved because I was no longer designing from a place of panic. I got better clients. I raised my rates. I rented a better apartment with actual bedroom walls and a kitchen that did not share space with my bed. The Millers cheered every small win like it was a national holiday. When I landed a contract with a museum, Raymond brought a cake to Sunday dinner that said, "Proud of you, kid in blue frosting." When I got scared the client would realize I was not as good as they thought, Elaine looked me straight in the eye and said, "Let them decide what they think of your work. Do not reject yourself on their behalf." I wrote that on a sticky note and kept it on my computer for months. Matthew and I changed too. We did not have some dramatic confession under fireworks. We just kept choosing each other until one day pretending we were only friends became silly. He asked me to dinner at Harbor House Grill, the same restaurant where Elaine had found me. "This is a little on the nose," I said when we walked in. "I am an architect," he said. "We respect meaningful locations." "You mean you are sentimental?" "Deeply. Do not tell Raymond." We sat in a booth by the window, not the sad little table near the kitchen, a real booth, warm and private, with candles between us. I knew something was up because Matthew kept touching his jacket pocket. "Are you okay?" I asked. "No." "That is honest." He laughed, nervous. "Tara, I have practiced this in the car, in the shower, once in front of my bathroom mirror, and it still feels impossible." My heart started beating hard. He reached across the table and took my hand. "When I met you, you were trying very hard not to take up space. I remember thinking I wanted to make you laugh again before the night was over." Then I kept wanting that. For 2 years, I want to be beside you for the rest of it, not because you need saving, but because I love the person you are when you are not trying to disappear. My eyes filled. "Matthew." He slid out of the booth and knelt beside the table. A few people turned to watch. He opened a small velvet box. "Tara Turner, will you marry me?" For once in my life, the answer was easy. Yes. The whole restaurant clapped. I cried. Matthew cried a little too, though he later claimed it was the candle smoke, and then I saw Elaine and Raymond standing near the hostess stand with champagne already in their hands. "You knew?" I said. Elaine looked offended. "Of course I knew." Raymond hugged me so tight, my ribs hurt. "Welcome to the next chapter, kid." Wedding planning should have been joyful from the start. Mostly it was. We chose a vineyard in Napa Valley because Matthew had done a project in California years earlier and had fallen in love with the hills. I wanted June. Elaine wanted good chairs because, as she said, beauty is nice, but backs are real. Raymond only cared about the food, but there was one line on the invitation that made me freeze. Parents of the bride. My biological parents were Laura and Roger Turner. They had not called me on my birthday. They had not asked where I spent the last 2 Christmases. They had not apologized. They had not even noticed I was no longer trying. Putting their names on my wedding invitation felt like lying in ink. I tried leaving the line blank. That felt worse. One night, Elaine found me sitting at her kitchen table surrounded by invitation samples. "You have been staring at that one card for 20 minutes, she said. "I hate this line." She sat across from me. "Parents of the bride?" I nodded. "I do not know who belongs there." Elaine was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. "Do you remember what we talked about on the porch?" I knew immediately. Adult adoption. My throat tightened. "Elaine, Raymond and I have talked about it," she said carefully, "only because we wanted to be ready if you ever brought it up. We would never push you." "You talked about adopting me?" "Sweetheart, in our hearts that happened a long time ago." I started crying so fast I could not hide it. Elaine came around the table and put her arms around me. "If you want it," she whispered, "we would be honored to make it legal." Raymond was in the doorway. I had not heard him come in. His eyes were wet. "Been waiting for you to ask," he said. That was the moment I understood the difference between begging to be claimed and being wanted. The process took months. Paperwork, court filings, background information, a hearing in a small courtroom with fluorescent lights and a judge who had clearly seen every kind of family arrangement possible. Elaine handled the legal pieces, but she made sure I understood every page. Matthew supported me, but he never tried to make the adoption about him. He knew what it meant. He knew it was not just a wedding detail. It was me choosing a family after years of being treated like a guest in my own. On the day the judge signed the order, I became Tara Miller Turner on paper. I kept Turner as part of my legal name because I was not trying to erase my past. I was adding the truth of who had loved me well. The judge smiled and said, "Congratulations." Raymond cried openly. Elaine held my face in both hands and said, "My daughter." I believed her. The invitations went out 2 weeks later. Parents of the bride, Raymond and Elaine Miller. Under it, in smaller print because Matthew insisted and I let him, the family who chose her. I should have known the Turners would find out. People always do when there is something to gossip about. 3 months before the wedding, Vanessa texted me for the first time in almost 3 years. "So you are getting married and did not tell us?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I blocked her number. A few days later my mother called, then called again, then again. 5 missed calls in one afternoon. Finally, a text came through. "Why did I have to hear from someone else that my daughter is getting married? Call me immediately." My daughter. Funny how those words returned when there was a wedding attached. I did not call. The next text came an hour later. "This is cruel, Tara. We are your family." I deleted it. Matthew found me standing in the kitchen that evening, staring at the counter like it had insulted me. "Your mother? She knows." He came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "What do you want to do?" "Nothing." "Then we do nothing." "She will not accept that." "Probably not." I leaned back against him. "I am tired." "I know. I do not want to explain my pain to the people who caused it." "Then do not." That was one of the things I loved about Matthew. He did not turn every boundary into a debate. If I said no, he treated it like a complete sentence. My mother showed up at my apartment the next Tuesday. I was working from home, reviewing logo proofs for a client, when the doorbell rang. I opened it without checking, which was a mistake I never made again. Laura Turner stood in the hallway. She looked older than I remembered. Her hair was shorter and more gray around the temples, but her expression was the same one I had spent my childhood trying to fix. Disappointed before I even spoke. "Tara?" "Mom?" The word felt like a habit, not a truth. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? She stepped past me into the apartment without being invited. I should be asking you that. Getting married behind our backs? I closed the door slowly. We have not spoken in almost 3 years. And whose fault is that? I looked at her. Yours? She blinked like I had slapped her. Excuse me? You told me not to come home for Thanksgiving. Dad backed you up. Nobody called after that. That was one holiday. It was not one holiday. It was the final example of a pattern. She waved a hand. You always talk like this. Pattern, boundaries, drama dressed up in therapy words. I took a breath. Why are you here? I want an invitation to my daughter's wedding. No. Her mouth opened. What did you say? No. Tara, do not be ridiculous. You are not invited. She looked around my living room and saw the framed photos on the bookshelf. Me and Matthew hiking, me with Aaron and Liam covered in flour after baking cookies, Elaine and me at a garden center both holding tomato plants, Raymond and me at Sunday dinner, his arm around my shoulders. My mother picked up the photo with Raymond. Who is this? Raymond. I know his name from the invitation. Who is he? My father. She went very still. Do not say that. It is true. Your father is Roger Turner. Roger Turner is the man who raised me and then refused to protect me. How dare you? I was adopted. Mom. The words hung in the air. She stared at me like she did not understand English anymore. Adopted. Adult adoption. Legal. Elaine and Raymond Miller are my parents now. Her face changed. First confusion, then fear, then anger. Because anger was easier for her than grief. You cannot just replace us. I did not replace you. You left the position empty. She set the photo down too hard. This is sick. Those people filled your head with nonsense. Those people fed me Thanksgiving dinner when you told me I was not welcome. You are still holding that over my head? No, I said. I built a life around the truth it showed me. She took a step toward me. I am your mother. Not legally. Her eyes flashed. You think a piece of paper changes blood? No, love does. For once, she had no immediate answer. I walked to the door and opened it. You need to leave. We are coming to that wedding. No, you are not. You would humiliate your own family? You humiliated me for 27 years and called it peace. She stared at me. I could see her searching my face for the old Tara, the one who cried, explained, apologized, softened the truth so nobody else had to feel uncomfortable. That Tara was still part of me. But she was not in charge anymore. Goodbye, Mom. She left with her purse clutched against her chest. I locked the door and sat on the floor for a while. I did not feel powerful. I felt shaky. Boundaries often feel like that at first. People talk about them like they are clean and confident. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they are you sitting on the floor after telling your mother no, shaking because your body still thinks love can be lost by telling the truth. But I had not lost love. I had protected it. The wedding day came on a golden June morning. Napa Valley looked unreal, like someone had turned the color up on the whole world. Rows of grapevines rolled across the hills. The air smelled like roses, dry grass, and warm stone. Our ceremony was outside under an arch covered in white flowers and greenery. The reception was in a stone barn with high wooden beams, long tables, candles, and windows open to the evening air. In the bridal suite, Elaine adjusted my veil with careful hands. You look beautiful, she said. You have to say that. I do not. I am retired. I can say whatever I want. I laughed. She tucked one loose curl behind my ear. You look like yourself. That is better than beautiful. I looked at the woman in the mirror. 5 years earlier, I had been crying into a napkin in a restaurant, convinced I was hard to love. Now I stood in a wedding dress with my chosen mother behind me and my chosen father waiting to walk me down the aisle. On the vanity sat the wedding program. I picked it up and read the line again. Parents of the bride, Raymond and Elaine Miller, the family who chose her. My throat tightened. Elaine saw my face in the mirror. You okay? Yes. That sounded like a brave yes, not a true yes. I am thinking about how different everything could have been. Different how? If you had not spoken to me that night? She shook her head. Sweetheart, I am glad I did, but do not give me all the credit. You were the one who got up from that table. There was a soft knock. Raymond opened the door, then immediately covered his eyes. Am I allowed? Yes, Elaine said. Come in before you trip. He lowered his hand and saw me. His face crumpled. Oh, kid. Do not make me cry, I warned. Too late for me. He wiped his eyes with a handkerchief. Elaine adjusted his boutonniere even though it was already perfect. Ready? He asked. I took his arm. Ready. The ceremony was everything I had hoped it would be. Raymond walked me down the aisle with steady steps. When Matthew saw me, he pressed both hands over his mouth and everyone laughed softly because he was trying so hard not to sob. The officiant spoke about chosen love, about building a home not from perfect histories but from daily decisions. Matthew's vows were simple and honest. He promised to make coffee when I was too tired to speak. He promised to remind me I did not have to earn rest. He promised that our home would always have a seat for me. I promised to choose him freely, not out of fear, not out of hunger for rescue, but out of love. When we kissed, the applause rose into the bright afternoon. For a few hours, I forgot to be afraid. Then, during cocktail hour, Sandra pulled me aside. Her smile was tight. Tara, I need to tell you something. My stomach dropped. What? There are 2 people near the back garden. Older couple. They say they are your parents. For a second, the sounds around me blurred, glasses clinking, music, laughter, Matthew greeting guests across the lawn. Did they get in? They are inside the reception area now. Security thought they were late relatives. Of course they had come. Of course my no had meant nothing to them. I walked to the edge of the patio and saw them, Laura and Roger Turner. My mother wore a navy dress and pearls, dressed for the role she thought she could still claim. My father stood beside her in a gray suit, hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I remembered. They were looking around at the flowers, the tables, the guests, like they were trying to measure how much of my life they had missed. Matthew reached me. I heard. I am okay. You do not have to be. No, I said, but I am. Elaine appeared on my other side. Do you want them removed now? I watched my mother speak to a server as if she belonged there. Not yet. Elaine studied me. Are you sure? The reception introduction is in 10 minutes, right? Matthew looked at me. He understood before anyone else did. Tara! I am not making a scene, I said. I am letting the truth be announced as planned. Raymond joined us, his jaw tight. Whatever you want, kid. The reception began with music and applause. Guests found their seats. The barn glowed with candlelight. Through the open doors, the vineyard hills turned soft purple in the evening. Laura and Roger stood near the back, not at a table because they were not on the seating chart. My mother looked irritated about that. Good. The MC stepped up to the microphone. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to ask you something. If your parents showed up uninvited after years of silence, would you let them stay long enough to hear the truth? Or would you have them removed immediately? Tell me in the comments. I know people will disagree, and that is exactly why I want to hear it. The room quieted. The MC smiled. Ladies and gentlemen, before dinner, we want to honor some very special people. I watched my mother lift her chin. She thought this was her moment. Maybe she thought I had softened. Maybe she thought weddings made daughters obedient again. Please join me, the MC said, in welcoming the parents of the bride, Raymond and Elaine Miller. The room erupted. People stood. Applause filled the barn. Elaine and Raymond rose from the head table, smiling through tears. David whistled. Aaron and Liam cheered like they were at a ball game, and at the back of the room my mother's face went white. I saw the exact second she understood. Not guessed. Understood. Raymond and Elaine Miller were not mentors, not family friends, not kind strangers I had grown close to. They were being publicly introduced as what they legally were. My parents. Laura grabbed Roger's arm. What did he say? Roger did not answer. He was staring at the head table. The applause kept going. To everyone else in the room, this was normal. They knew my story, or enough of it. They knew Raymond had walked me down the aisle. They knew Elaine had helped me get ready. They knew the Millers were my family. Only Laura and Roger looked like the floor had disappeared under them. My mother pushed through the crowd. Matthew stepped closer to me, but I touched his arm. Let her come. Laura reached me just as the applause faded. Her face was flushed now, her eyes bright with fury. What is going on? This is my wedding reception. Who are those people? My parents. Stop saying that. It is true. You are embarrassing us. I looked around the room. People had noticed. Conversations quieted. A few guests turned in their chairs. The photographer lowered his camera but did not move away. You came uninvited, I said. You do not get to complain about embarrassment. Roger stepped up behind her. Tara, maybe we should talk somewhere private. I looked at my father. You had years to talk to me in private. He flinched. Laura's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. You cannot erase your own mother. I did not erase you. I stopped pretending you were still doing the job. I gave birth to you. And Elaine showed up for me. We raised you. You raised me to believe I was always the problem. Her mouth tightened. This is what I mean. Drama. Always drama. Something in me almost laughed. There it was again, the old word. The word they used whenever the truth became inconvenient. No, I said, this is not drama. This is consequence. Raymond was at my side now. Elaine stood on the other side. She did not touch me yet. She just stood close enough that I could feel her presence. Laura looked at her with open hatred. You, she said, you stole my daughter. Elaine did not blink. No, Mrs. Turner. I found your daughter alone on Thanksgiving. Because she was throwing a fit. Raymond's voice cut through the room. Careful. I had never heard that tone from him before. Raymond Miller was a gentleman. He fixed chairs, overfed guests, and cried at commercials involving old dogs and reunions. But right then his voice had steel in it. Laura turned on him. Who do you think you are? Raymond stepped forward. Her father. The room went completely still. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Legally, publicly, and every Sunday for the last 5 years. Laura shook her head. You people took advantage of a vulnerable woman. No, Raymond said. We gave a lonely young woman dinner. We gave her a chair. We gave her what you should have given her long before we ever met her. Roger closed his eyes. Raymond continued. She told us that night she could not remember the last time she felt wanted by her own family. 27 years old, sitting alone in a restaurant on Thanksgiving, crying over a plate of turkey because her mother told her not to come home. Laura's face twisted. That is not what happened. It is exactly what happened, I said. My voice was calm. That surprised me most of all. You told me Vanessa did not want drama. Dad told me to listen to you. Nobody called. Nobody checked on me. You posted a picture with no chair for me and wrote about the people who mattered most. My mother's eyes flicked around the room. Now she was aware of the audience. Now she cared. This should be private, she said. You made it public when you walked into my wedding without an invitation. For the first time in my life, my father spoke without waiting for my mother. Tara. His voice cracked. I looked at him, really looked. Roger Turner had aged badly. His shoulders curved inward. His hair was thinner. His eyes were wet. I am sorry. he said. Laura turned on him. Roger. He shook his head. No, I need to say it. The room held its breath. My father looked at me like he was seeing not a difficult daughter, not a problem to manage, but a person he had failed. I should have stopped it, he said. Years ago, I should have stopped letting your mother and Vanessa make you the easy one to hurt. My chest ached, not with hope, that had left a long time ago, with grief for the little girl who had needed those words when they could still change something. I was a coward, he said. I kept telling myself I was keeping peace. I was not. I was choosing silence because it was easier for me. Tears slipped down his face. I had never seen my father cry. You were my daughter, he said. You are my daughter. And I let you feel unwanted in your own home. I am sorry. The words were real. I believed he meant them. That did not make them enough. Thank you for saying that, I told him. His face opened with a painful kind of hope, so I had to be clear. But sorry does not give me back the years. It does not change who came for me when I was alone. It does not make you my father in the ways I needed one. He nodded slowly, crying harder. I know. I hope you do know. Laura looked furious now, not only at me, but at him. This is humiliating. Then leave, I said. Her eyes snapped back to mine. You would throw your mother out of your wedding? You threw your daughter out of Thanksgiving. She recoiled like the words had struck her. I took one step closer. I do not hate you, Mom. That seemed to confuse her. I really do not. I spent too many years trying to hate you, then trying to forgive you, then trying to become whatever kind of daughter would make you love me better. I am done with all of that. The room was silent except for the hum of the speakers. You are not a monster, I said. You are a woman who chose the easier child to understand and punished the one who asked questions. Dad is not a monster either. He is a man who stood by and called it peace. Vanessa is not a monster. She is someone who benefited from my silence and never wanted to look too closely at it. Laura's lips trembled, but she said nothing. I am not erasing you from my story. I am just not giving you the power to write the next part. Elaine touched my arm then. One gentle touch. Enough. Raymond and Elaine are my parents now, I said. Not because they stole me, because they stayed, because they listened, because they chose me without making me earn every scrap of love. I looked at security, who had been waiting near the entrance. Please, escort them out. Laura's face hardened. You will regret this. For the first time, those words did not scare me. No, I said. I already regret waiting so long. As security led them toward the doors, Roger stopped and looked back. I am glad you found them, he said quietly. Laura hissed his name, but he kept looking at me. I mean it. Then they were gone. For one long second, nobody moved. I stood in my wedding dress, shaking now, because the body always catches up after the truth is spoken. Matthew took my hand. Elaine wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Raymond kissed the top of my head. Then Aaron, who was 12 and had no patience for heavy silence, shouted, Can we eat now? The whole room burst into relieved laughter, and just like that, the wedding came back to life. Dinner was served. The band started. People hugged me quietly without making me explain. Matthew and I danced our first dance under strings of warm lights. He held me close and whispered, You were incredible. I was terrified. Both can be true. Later, Raymond gave his toast. He stood with one hand in his pocket and the microphone in the other, already emotional before he spoke. 5 years ago, he said, my wife invited a young woman to our Thanksgiving table because she looked like she needed kindness. I thought we were giving her dinner. Turns out she was giving us a daughter. I cried into my napkin. Elaine cried openly. Matthew squeezed my hand. Raymond raised his glass. To Tara and Matthew, may your home have strong walls, open doors, and enough chairs for everyone who knows how to love you well. Everyone toasted. That was the father of the bride speech I had never imagined I would get. The next morning, my phone was full of messages. Some were kind, some were not. Cousins I had not heard from in years told me I had broken my mother's heart. An uncle wrote, "Family is family. You only get one mother." I stared at that one for a while. Then I deleted it. You may only get one woman who gave birth to you. That does not mean you only get one chance at being loved. Then I saw a message from my Aunt Pamela, my father's younger sister. "Tara, I heard what happened. I want you to know I am proud of you. I should have said something years ago. I am sorry I did not. I read that message 3 times. I wrote back, "Thank you." That means more than you know. It did not fix everything. It did not need to. Sometimes one honest witness helps you trust your own memory. 2 weeks after the wedding, a letter arrived at our new apartment. The return address was Vanessa Turner Brandon. My sister's handwriting was the same as ever. Neat, loopy, perfect. I almost threw it away. Matthew found me standing over the trash can with the envelope in my hand. "You do not have to read it." "I know." "Do you want me to sit with you?" "Yes." We sat at the kitchen table, and I opened it. "Dear Tara, I do not know if you will read this. Mom told me what happened at the wedding. She is devastated, and Dad has barely spoken since they came home. I know you think we all treated you badly, but I hope one day you understand that things were complicated. Mom was only trying to keep peace. I was pregnant and emotional, and you know how tense things can get when you start asking questions. I never meant for you to feel excluded. You just always made everything harder than it needed to be. Maybe when you have children, you will understand why Mom made the choices she made. I hope you are happy with your new family. We still love you, even if you have decided we are not good enough for you. Vanessa." I read it once, then again. Matthew watched my face. "Are you okay?" "Yes." And I meant it. The letter hurt, but not the way it would have years before. Years before, I would have written pages back. I would have corrected every sentence. I would have tried to prove that I was not difficult, not cruel, not ungrateful. Now I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope, and set it in a drawer. "She still does not get it," I said. "No. And it is not my job to make her." Matthew reached across the table and took my hand. "No, it is not." That sentence felt like freedom. Not dramatic freedom, quiet freedom. The kind where you realize you do not have to attend every argument you are invited to. A year after the wedding, life settled into something steady and good. Matthew and I bought a small Cape Cod outside Boston with blue shutters, creaky floors, and a backyard big enough for a garden. It was 20 minutes from Elaine and Raymond, which meant Sunday dinner stayed sacred. My freelance work had turned into a full-time position as art director at a design agency. I liked my boss. I liked my team. I liked having health insurance that did not make me want to scream. Matthew's architecture firm was doing well. We painted rooms slowly. We bought furniture secondhand. Raymond helped us repair everything we could not afford to replace. Elaine brought soup in containers labeled with blue tape because she did not trust us to feed ourselves during renovation weekends. Then I got pregnant. When we told Elaine, she cried so hard Raymond had to bring her tissues. Raymond tried to stay composed for about 3 seconds, then gave up. "Grandpa," he said, testing the word. I like that. Aaron and Liam immediately began arguing over who would be the baby's favorite cousin. "Neither of you," David said. "The baby will choose me because I have money." "You have 2 kids," Sandra said. "You do not have money." Everyone laughed. I sat there with my hand over my stomach and looked around that familiar table. There were extra chairs now, always. One Sunday afternoon, Elaine and I painted the nursery a soft sage green. She wore an old shirt of Raymond's and had paint on her cheek. "Names?" she asked. "If it is a girl, Ella Grace." Elaine's brush paused. "Ella?" "For you a little." Not exactly your name, but close enough that I know." Her eyes filled. "And Grace?" "For my grandmother. She was kind to me when I was little." Elaine set down the brush and hugged me carefully, mindful of the baby. "That is beautiful. If it is a boy, we are still arguing." Raymond suggested Raymond. "He suggested Raymond for a girl too." Elaine laughed through tears. 6 months later, Ella Grace Collins arrived on a rainy morning with a strong cry and Matthew's dark hair. When the nurse placed her on my chest, I looked at her tiny face and felt a vow rise in me so strong it scared me. I would never make this child earn a place in my life. I would never call her feelings drama because they made me uncomfortable. I would never teach her that love was something she had to perform for. Elaine came to the hospital carrying a bag of snacks, 3 baby blankets, and a folder, because she is Elaine, and hospitals make her overprepared. Raymond walked in behind her and stopped dead when he saw Ella. "Oh," he whispered, "there she is." He held her like she was made of light. I took a picture of him in that moment, his big hands around that tiny bundle, tears on his cheeks. Elaine beside him with one hand over her mouth. That photo is still on our mantel. 5 years to the day after I sat alone at Harbor House Grill, I sat at the head of a very different Thanksgiving table. The Miller house was loud, perfectly loud. Ella was 6 months old and being passed from person to person like the world's most adored loaf of bread. Aaron was teaching Liam a card game and cheating badly. Sandra was correcting David's gravy technique. Matthew and Raymond were arguing about whether turkey should rest 30 minutes or 45. Elaine caught Raymond sneaking pie before dinner and pointed at him without even turning her head. "I see you." He froze with the fork halfway to his mouth. "This is not pie. This is quality control." "Quality control can wait." I laughed so hard Ella startled, then laughed too, because babies think their mothers are comedy geniuses. Before we ate, Elaine tapped her glass. "Tara," she said, "will you make the toast?" I stood with Ella on my hip. For a moment I could not speak. I looked around at the table. Elaine. Raymond. Matthew, David and Sandra, Aaron and Liam, my daughter, my family. 5 years ago, I said, I was sitting alone in a restaurant on Thanksgiving, trying not to cry into food I could not taste. Elaine was already crying. I thought being left out meant there was something wrong with me. I thought if I had been easier, quieter, better somehow, maybe I would have been wanted. Matthew's hand rested against my back. Then a stranger walked up to my table and told me no one should eat alone on Thanksgiving. She invited me to a table that had no reason to make room for me, and all of you made room anyway. Raymond wiped his eyes with his napkin. So this toast is to family, not the kind that demands loyalty while giving none back. The kind that shows up, the kind that saves a chair, the kind that chooses you and keeps choosing you. I raised my glass. To family. To family, everyone echoed. Ella slapped the table with both hands. It was the best amen I had ever heard. After dinner, Matthew and I sat on the back porch with Ella asleep against my chest. The November air was cold, so we were wrapped in an old quilt Elaine kept by the door. Inside, the Millers were cleaning up loudly, which meant more talking than cleaning. Matthew looked over at me. Do you ever think about them? My biological family? He nodded. I looked out at the dark yard. Sometimes. What do you feel? That question would have terrified me once. Now I could answer it without drowning in it. Some sadness. Mostly distance. Like looking through a window into a house I used to live in. Do you miss them? I miss what I wanted them to be. He nodded. That makes sense. I do not miss begging. Ella stirred and I kissed her soft hair. I spent so many years trying to get chosen by people who had already decided my role. I was the one who understood, the one who forgave, the one who made peace. The one who stayed quiet so everyone else could stay comfortable. I looked through the window at Elaine laughing with Raymond, her hand on his shoulder. Then I found out love does not feel like begging. Matthew's arm tightened around me. "What does it feel like?" I smiled. "Like Sunday dinner. Like someone calling because they said 5 o'clock and meant it. Like a chair pulled out before you ask. Like being allowed to take up space." He kissed my temple. "I am glad you found that." "Me too." I looked down at Ella. "And I am glad she will grow up knowing it from the beginning." If you are listening to this, and you have been the family scapegoat, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not dramatic for noticing pain. You are not selfish for wanting fairness. You are not cruel for stepping away from people who only want you close when you are quiet. Some families will call every boundary a betrayal because they benefited from you having none. Let them call it whatever they need to call it. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to build a life where love is not something you have to audition for. You are allowed to find your people. Maybe they are friends. Maybe they are neighbors. Maybe they are a partner's family. Maybe they are strangers at a restaurant who see you crying and decide there is room at their table. Family is not only blood. Blood can explain where you came from. It does not get to decide where you stay. The people who raised me taught me how small I could make myself and still be unwanted. The people who chose me taught me how much space love can make when it is real. And now, every Thanksgiving, when I sit at that loud table with too much pie and too many opinions and my daughter on someone's lap, I remember the girl at the tiny restaurant table near the kitchen. I wish I could sit beside her. I wish I could tell her to take Elaine's hand. I wish I could tell her the empty chair in Connecticut was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of a better table. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story touched something in you, please subscribe, leave a like, and tell me in the comments if you have ever had to build your own family. I read those stories, and I know other people need to see them too. And wherever you are tonight, I hope you remember this. You deserve to be chosen without having to disappear first.